Our next speaker is a very special treat. This is a person that has been recommended to me as an incredible college president from multiple different people. I keep hearing this person's name. So please give it up for President Michael Sorrell. He's joining us from Quinn College, and he's revolutionizing the potential of what colleges can do in an urban environment. You'll get to hear a bit more about his story and his vision, and so I hope you enjoy.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good morning. Oh, come on. I know we're in New Orleans and it's been a rough night, right? But good morning. Thank you. Listen, I get it. I've been to New Orleans a lot. I've never made it to 9 o'clock anything on a Saturday morning in New Orleans. So you all are already better off than I am. I am thrilled to be here today. This is special for me, because it's not often I get to hang out in a place with people who are as crazy as I am, right? People who believe that they can change the world. Wait, this is the right group of people, right? That was actually an applause line, right? You do believe you can change the world. All right, so what we're gonna talk about today is, there we go. What we're gonna talk about today is poverty, values, and the new urban college model, which is really the Quinn College story. I love this quote because it frames our version of innovation and entrepreneurship. Nothing has more strength than dire necessity. It is easy to be creative when you can go home at night and think, well, maybe I'll just be better tomorrow, or maybe this will make sense tomorrow. It is something completely different when you realize that if you don't get this right, people's lives remain terrible. And that is the version of innovation and the inspiration that we come from at Quinn College. It is dire necessity. So this was Quinn College in 2007. I became president March 27, 2007. And let me just say this, when people call and offer you a job you didn't apply for, be careful. Right, be careful. Now, if you are an egomaniac, you might think, because I'm just that good, right? More likely, it's because no one else wanted the job. All right, so in my case, that's how I became a college president. Because you don't call up a guy who has no higher ed training, has never taken an education class, and say, boy, do I have a deal for you, okay? So in 2007, the Boston Consulting Group did a study on Quinn College and basically came to the conclusion that after 135 years, we were 18 months from going under, all right? That means that somehow the school survived Reconstruction, post-slavery, Jim Crow, but it couldn't survive the current iteration of the institution. That's a problem. Among the problems were low stakeholder happiness, the faculty was angry, deficit budgets, it had 5 presidents in 5 years. Things were bad. Everywhere you looked, you saw disappointment, you saw anger, and you saw hopelessness. But I saw something else. I realized that we were unencumbered by a history of success. Right? So, no, thank you. The reality of it is, it was low stakes for me. How much worse could I make it, right? So, what we decided to do was something completely different. Now, to understand Quinn, you need to understand Dallas, Texas, and you need to understand our neighborhood, Highland Hills. And our neighborhood, Highland Hills, is an under-resourced community. 97% of the people who live in Highland Hills are minorities, mostly black. 84% of the residents have high school diplomas or less. 50% of the residents who live there are unemployed. The 49% who are employed make less than $30,000 a year. There are no grocery stores in Highland Hills. In fact, we are closer to the city garbage dump than we are a grocery store. Think about that for a moment. We are 1.5 miles to 2 miles from the garbage dump, but we are 3 to 4 miles from a grocery store. How can that be possible? More importantly, how can that be right? So, in Dallas, we have this bit of an ironic situation. We're one of the wealthiest and largest cities in the country. we are also one of the poorest. 25% of all Dallas residents live in poverty. That makes us the third largest city in the country in terms of poverty rate. 38% of the children in Dallas live in poverty. That makes us number one. Think about that. 1 in 4 students, 1 in 4 children live in poverty. 41% of the people who are in poverty in Dallas are children. When children are engaged in long-term poverty, we know that it destroys their cognitive ability, their emotional ability, but more than either of those two, it robs them of their ability to dream and their ability to hope. And if you want to know what happens when people lose hope, you look in this prison industrial complex that we have, filled with people who lost hope. 40%, almost 40% of our children in Dallas are living without hope. This is a map of Dallas. Now here's what I want you to see. The red lines are where the greatest amount of concentrated poverty is. The brown is where our African American census tracts. The yellow are Hispanic census tracts. Dallas is a tale of two cities. If you live in the north, it's the Dallas you read about. It's the Dallas of the Cowboys. It's the Dallas of J.R. Ewing. It's beautiful buildings and wonderful, happy people. If you live south of that river, you live in a very different world. Unfortunately for the college, right about here is where we are. Smack dab in the heart of the worst concentrated poverty in the city. This was our reality. This is what we started with. Therefore, we created a new theory of higher education. We believe urban colleges should turn themselves outward and address the needs of their surrounding communities. We're not talking about civic engagement. We're talking about complete and total immersion in the issues that are concerning the people that we serve. So here are our fundamental beliefs. Number one, poverty is evil. We don't think anyone should live in poverty in a country as wealthy as the United States. Number two, debt is bad. Thank you. How do you justify putting people who are coming to you in poverty in more debt under the assumption that your debt is an investment and you're somehow going to become better in life? Poor plus more poor does not equal wealthy. We think debt is bad. Number three, everyone can learn. The bulk of our students come to us with ACT scores of 17, SAT scores of around 1,100, 2.7 grade point averages. People would have you believe that they can't learn. No, everyone can learn. The trick is, can you teach them? Can you design an educational experience that inspires them, that incorporates their lives into the equation? We believe we can, and we have found a way to do so. The last one is this: we can do better. We believe that all of us collectively can find a way to do better for the people who need us to do better. So here's our formula. We preach hope. We practice patience. We instill resilience. We teach entrepreneurial thought and action. And by the way, those of you who may see that sounds a little familiar, I stole it from Babson. I own it. My good friend Cheryl Kaiser is here somewhere. Right, there she is. This is what happens when you let me on your college campus, all right? I grab everything and figure it out later. The last one is we believe in leading with love, and that is one of the most important. When I was a young college president, 2 months into this, I got into an argument in the middle of campus with a student, and we were going at it. It was a young man. We continued the argument in my office when all of a sudden he broke down in tears. And I didn't really know what to do with that. Had one of my staff members, a woman by the name of Evelyn Dickerson, in the office with me, and she said, "Baby, if you grow up in life and you only know tough, how will you ever know love? You've got to lead with love if you want them to understand." Changed my entire frame of mind as a college president. And from that moment on, I made a point of telling my students and telling my community that I love them. Required me to be vulnerable, but I'm a big guy, so it worked out. This is our everything, we over me. The needs of the community supersede the wants of the individual. You don't get to be selfish at Paul Quinn College and the Quinnite Nation. Everything we do is about improving the lives of others. That's it. That's all of it. If you don't want to buy into that, don't come. But if you come, we expect you to embrace our institutional ethos. We over me. Now here's what we call the we over me effect. Because once it gets in you, it makes you do all types of crazy things. All right? Example number one, we terminated our football program and turned our football field into a 2-acre organic farm. Interestingly, that's not the response I get in Texas. So, we believe that it made more sense for people to have access to healthy vegetables than to watch bad football, okay? And we were bad, okay? But here's something else that's interesting. We give away 10% of everything we grow. We call it tithing to the community. But do you know who our largest customer is? The Dallas Cowboys. We've sent more tomatoes to the NFL than we ever sent football players, all right? But that spirit, what that did, it allowed us to say to people, and look, when we started this, we had no idea what we were doing. Literally, when I called up the person who built the farm or ran it for us, I said, listen, you went to Spelman College and you majored in economics? And she said, yes. I was like, great, you're gonna run the farm. And she said, I don't know anything about farming. I was like, I don't want to hear that. Google it. Figure it out, right? That's a true story, but that is also how you wind up watering the garden like this with hoses, okay? We had a couple design flaws we had to work out. Next up, we had an issue with the garbage dump. The city tried to increase the garbage dump, turn it into the largest garbage dump in the Southwest without telling anybody. Our students and our staff formed something called the We Are Not Trash movement, and we took it to the streets. Now, when we started the We Are Not Trash movement, we only had an enrollment of 200 students, right? We subscribed to the principle of Gideon's Army. My 200 committed souls will beat your 10,000 of indifferent ones any day of the week. Thank you. We didn't win at City Hall, but we inspired others to file a lawsuit against the city, and they won. So the garbage dump stayed the size that it was, and it sent a very real message that you will no longer take advantage of this community. Then we realized our students were suffering economically. We were only charging $23,000 a year for tuition, but what does it matter if people can't afford it? So we took a step back, looked at a different system of doing things, and created the new urban college model, and this is what it is. First of all, we're the first urban work college in the country. Everyone at our school, if you live on campus, you work 10 to 20 hours a week. That allows us to prepare our students for the workforce. Because if you come out of an under-resourced community, 83% of our students are Pell Grant eligible. That means they have backgrounds of long-term dysfunctional relationships with work. We've got to step in the gap and address that. That's what the work program allows us to do. It also allowed us to reduce tuition and fees. So we cut $10,000 out of our tuition and fees. We charge $14,300, and this is how it's paid for. $5,800 is covered by your Pell Grant. $5,000 is covered by your work tuition grant. Then another $1,200 comes from additional federal funds or state funds or a combination of some institutional funds. That means that our students can graduate from college with $9,000 of debt over the course of 4 years. All right? That means that we are living up to our promise that debt is bad. Thank you. We also realized that our students couldn't afford textbooks, not because the subject matter was boring, although some of it was more because they needed the money for other parts of their lives. So instead of sitting there judging them and berating them, we created an academic experience where we use open source materials and people don't need to buy textbooks. And it's made an enormous difference in the lives of our students. Lastly, entrepreneurship. We tell our students, you solve the problems. Stop treating your communities as places to escape from and start treating them as places to heal. You be the ones to do that, make a difference in the lives of others. Again, it's we over me. Now here's the payoff. President Clinton was just on our campus on Monday. By the way, first time in 144 years we've seen a president on Paul Quinn College's campus. And this is what he said. Thank you very much. This is what he said. This college works the way we think America should work. I don't know how it gets much better than that, right? But I can tell you this much, if you follow Paul Quinn College, you are going to see that quote a lot, okay? A lot. Secondly, a few years ago, the New York Times did a story on us and called us an emerging national and community leader. We were incredibly humbled by that. Lastly, perhaps the best college president in America, Freeman Hrabowski from the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, said that we took a small college and turned it into a big idea. And that big idea is simply this: urban colleges have a responsibility to turn themselves outward and solve the problems of the communities they serve. You don't get to be selfish. You cannot do that. Now, if you do all that, here's what you get: really happy students, okay? And let me tell you about these students very quickly. This student, all the way over here on the left, was sent to us with an extreme learning disability. There's nothing wrong with his mind, it's just the way he processes information. He is one of the most wonderful students we have ever had. Next to him is one of our basketball players. Finally found a home after 3 colleges, but you know what? Had a 3.6 last semester. She's a single mother. She's from El Salvador. Miss Paul Quinn, by the way, is from El Salvador and is an undocumented student and has a mother who battles severe issues, and she loves her and still every day has found a way to come to school and make a 3.8. Next to her, another single mother who's our student I know she looks like she's queen of the usher board right now, but she is the Student Government Association president. Next to her is one of our very best basketball players. The next young man is homeless. He lives in our dorm. He's one of my presidential scholars. He is an absolute rock star. You will hear from him down the road. The next one is just a really good-looking middle-class kid we have. You know, because the story can't always be about nothing but poverty, right? So I just want to say thank you so much for the graciousness of your attention and of your time, and keep working hard. Take care. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.